Well, hello there, fellow geeks and geekettes, and welcome to another video. Now, this has been all over the internet for a couple of days now, and it concerns, a new show put out by Disney Plus, which is called Marvel 616. It is a series of short documentaries about various aspects of Marvel Comics. There's an episode about cosplays, there's an episode about action figurines, and things like that. And the seventh episode, I believe, is called The Marvel Method, which was devised, the Marvel Method, by Stan Lee himself. And it's basically about writing comic books, writing comic book scripts. And it goes this way. You just break down the plot very briefly, very shortly, understandably, to the penciler, to the artist, who then proceeds to draw the pages, the comic book, sends the pages back to the writer, and the writer then writes the dialogue. So the effort then, as far as the comic book creation, goes 50-50. It's a real cooperation between the artist and the writer. Moreover, it is a quicker way to work on comic books because Stan Lee himself was working on more than 10 comic book titles a month. And in addition to this, he was the chief editor and the face of Marvel Comics, which means that he had very little time. And this proved to be very efficient. Now, on the other hand, the method that they use at DC Comics, for example, they write full scripts, which means that the writer writes a full script with descriptions of the panels and the dialogue, and the artist then gets the full script and draws the comic book. Now, this episode follows the writer, Dan Slott, who is, among others, known, I believe, for writing Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, and it follows him writing, not really writing, as you will get to know, Iron Man 2020, which is a comic book series that came out to honor the year 2020. It was written by 2019, but there was another original Iron Man 2020 comic book published, a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, quite a long time ago, and it was very good. But this shows very strange thing, and it is the incompetence of Dan Slott, because from the very beginning it shows Dan Slott struggling with breaking down the plot in simple lines. Him sitting behind his computer and not being able to write a single line, struggling, making typos, being distracted by Twitter, because there's like a tweet, and he goes, "Oh, a tweet," and then proceeds to follow the social media for a long time instead of working. Now, this of course slows down the process of creating the comic book. Everything gets delayed. The penciler doesn't get the breakdown soon, so he can't really work. So another writer is summoned. His name was I don't even know what was his name. It was here somewhere. La-di-da. The name of the writer was... Jesus, I should have prepared better. Christus Gage, yeah. So, Christus Gage, another writer, was summoned to handle the dialogue to help Dan Slott create the script. And throughout the entire episode, Dan Slott is talking with Tom Brevoort, which is like a chief editor, I think, or one of the editors of from Marvel Comics. And every single person in this episode is telling the audience that this is a norm as far as Dan Slott goes, that he is an incompetent writer who's always late, who can't write, and the person who suffers the most is the letterer. who is the last person to receive the comic book. The letter is the person who puts the words in the bubbles, right? So that the comic book can be printed out. But if you don't have the script, if you don't have the pages drawn, you can't receive the comic book, so you can put the letters in. So that it all ends up almost with the letterer Joe Caramagna receiving the comic book like a day before it goes to print. So he has to work for 24 hours. He didn't sleep, so he could letter the comic book. And the entire thing ended with Dan Slott going to a comic book shop, signing the comic book, which he didn't write, because he couldn't even break down the simple plot on a couple of pages for this 6-issue miniseries. Then he had to be helped by another writer. And everything got delayed, which means that the creation of the next issues got delayed. And you just have to wonder, why did Disney release this episode? Which just shows the incompetence of Marvel Comics. Not only Dan Slott, but Tom Brevoort, the editor, by the entire Marvel Comics publisher, because they hire people who are incompetent. They hire people who can't do their job properly. And it is because of these people who, among other things, or besides being incompetent, are constantly mean and evil to fans and customers on social media, and driving them away and openly saying, if you do not agree with me, do not buy my comic book, do not buy my creation, fuck off. So they are representing a huge corporation, a huge publisher like Marvel Comics. They are mean to the customers of that publisher, of this corporation. They are calling them Nazis and saying fuck off. And in addition to this, they are incompetent and not doing their job properly. They are putting out a bad product. All right, I would say, okay, fine. So you are always late and you are struggling if the comic books were actually good. But all the modern comic books put out by Marvel Comics are shit. So you just have to wonder why Disney released this. Why making this bad advertisement for themselves? Well, there are a couple of theories. Of course, Disney might have done this as a preparation for a complete shutdown of Marvel Comics, so they can point at Dan Slott and the whole Marvel Comics publisher and say, see, well, we can't keep this. We can't keep this. We have to dissolve this and get rid of this. Or they could just, think that it's cute, this little incompetent fat imp, being incompetent, and that it might actually entertain people. Well, from what I saw and read, people were entertained, but they were also shocked. And Marvel Comics has lost the little bit of faith that they had from the fans. Of course, there have been many comic book pros from Marvel Comics who said, you believed that? It was staged. It was fake. Of course, I believe that a lot of things were staged. You have to have staged scenes and things like that. But even if it was all fake and staged, do you really expect people not to believe what's on television? So even if that was fake, and I don't think it was, even if it was fake, it was a very bad decision to make this episode. Because people do believe what's on TV. And they draw conclusions. And it then influences your sales and the, overall result that the publisher then has. So I don't know. It was strange. Definitely was strange, and it only shows why Marvel Comics sucks. Why the comic books published by Marvel and DC have been terrible for years now, hiring incompetent people just based on, I don't know why they keep Dan Slott, but based on inclusion and representation, and Dan Slott. So yeah, I had quite a chuckle over this episode, and I was only assured in the fact that I'm quite right in not reading contemporary Marvel comics, just here and there an issue, when they have this bright idea and actually, have somebody talented write the comic book, like Chris Claremont writing a third of one Wolverine compilation issue. So what do you think, my friends? Have you seen the episode, and what conclusion have you drawn from watching this? Man, honestly, I felt sorry, extremely sorry for everybody involved, and I think that Marvel Comics should die, as well as DC Comics has already died, because it's just, it's keeping this alive, keeping Marvel Comics alive, it will just bring about more suffering. It's better to end it now, end it quickly, than to prolong the suffering any longer. Alright then. Well, see you, my friends, and see you very soon in another video. Bye.